Hello, everyone. This is Gauthier from Mutualknowledge, and today my guest is Maria Rebelo. Maria is the head of business development at UREEQA, of business development for the NFT sector. And nice to meet you, Maria. Nice to have you on the show today.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. So, can you please tell us what you're doing at UREEQA and what you're doing usually in the blockchain sector?
Of course. All right. So I've been working with NFTs for the past almost 3 years, mainly supporting artists, going into the space and brands as well. My background was always in marketing, and business. So I always try to put my strategy ideas and to help artists and brands. Now with Eureka, I've started working with them on the business development side of NFTs in order to bring our products into the Web3 or the blockchain world. Basically, what Eureka does is we use decentralized technology. So we take advantage of the blockchain technology to create a faster, cheaper, and easier to monetize way to create copyright licenses to validate NFTs on chain, and as well to help creators register and know their rights.
All right. So, mostly to protect the artists, for example? Is it also a way to improve their revenue?
Yes, we have, just as an example, on the music side, because Eureka has its own music department, because copyrights for music are very different from any other type of copyrights. Music is hard to validate. So for musicians, we have a protectors program where we help musicians monetize and earn or collect all the royalties, not just of NFTs, but also off chain. So from any type of royalty that they have in other countries without having to negotiate directly with a music label. So we're trying to cut the middleman of musicians so that they can actually earn their money.
All right. So that's, of course, the critical aspect. How do you remove the middleman? And that's what the blockchain brings. So, okay, that's cool. Question: what's the status at the moment regarding a critical maze? Because usually, when you offer such technologies, creators have to be incentivized to come to your place, but also people have to believe that this is a cool enough platform so that they can, ditch the traditional platform with the middleman. Did you guys reach that critical mass already, or is it still a work in progress?
I would say it's always a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we've been seeing as and one of the most criticized things in the blockchain world is the lack of user experience, which of course makes that platforms not that intuitive or good for any user. But we did work a lot on our UI and UX design to make the platform as friendly as possible. And the truth is, in comparison to what we're doing to the traditional copyright market and organizations, the process is always faster, simpler, and all the answers, all the questions and all the answers are already on the website. While in a copyright license department, you would have to schedule a meeting, go there, provide all the documents, pay a lot of fees, and wait at least 6 months to get your copyright license. So we can say that the user experience isn't perfect yet. I think nothing that I've seen so far in the blockchain world is perfect, but it is an improvement from what we have today.
Okay, that's good already. And how does it work for a typical musician, for example? Is it does the musician have to be educated regarding the blockchain field, or is it something that can become easier over time? Is it something you already worked on? Because you talked about user experience. Let's say I'm a guitar player and I want to sell my tunes. How educated do I have to be to use Eureka?
To use Eureka, you don't have to be very educated on NFTs or blockchain because the process is very simple and even bureaucratic. It's just, do you have the documents that prove that you are the creator of this piece? Yes, then send this to us and do your KYC. So you have to put your identity out there, of course, but only for us, so it remains anonymous. And it's fairly simple. Now, we do have examples of artists that came to us and they wanted to know more because Spotify gave them almost nothing in royalties. The music labels are hard. Not every artist can get into a music label. And so they come to us to understand more about NFTs. And in that case, then it's been my job for over 3 years already to educate artists and to support them to understand these hard concepts. So we always give any support that is needed.
All right. And how would you describe then your ecosystem at the moment? Do you have every type of musician at the moment, or are there some kinds of music, some types of music that are already much more crypto friendly than others? Just a general cultural question.
That is a very interesting question. So, in terms of UREEQA, our music department opened a few months ago. So, it's still very early stages. With the fine art and the NFT collectibles department, we have a lot more use cases. But with the music, not yet enough. I do see that a lot of alternative music, alternative electronic music, for example, is coming more often to the space, but also a lot of pop music. So we signed artists. We signed an artist in the past weeks. She's a double platinum artist in Canada, doing Latino pop music, which is amazing. It sells very well. So we see a lot of pop music coming, and of course the NFT space has received Steve Aoki and all this David Guetta and a lot of big artists. So we're waiting more and more for it to become mainstream. And luckily to get a platform like Spotify, but using blockchain technologies and allowing artists to monetize better.
All right. And so, how do you guys manage, for example, copywriting issues? Say there's a dispute, a legal claim saying, hey, this is my music.
That's a really good point. So we don't settle disputes. We don't have the jurisdiction or the power to do so. What we do is we find all the elements that prove the ownership of the real artist, and we communicate. So, for example, there was a case of copyright infringement with, if I'm not mistaken, it was OpenSea. So we communicated directly with OpenSea. We also had a case of an artist that used an artwork from one of our artists for their album, their CD album. In India, this was completely across the world. And the guy just didn't know. So we just sent him a message, we explained this, and he was very worried, of course, because when it comes to copyrights, legal implications can come, and he just apologized, took everything out. And besides that, we have as well a partnership with Kleros. So Kleros is the decentralized ecosystem that helps solve disputes. So we work together with them. And in case of a copyright infringement for NFTs, we will do our own backup search and provide all the validation tools to support the dispute.
That's great. Okay. Just like, just like in the world of Web 2, we copy paste pieces of code and APIs, and we managed to make a nice mix for a new business. Okay. Let's say, for example, it reminds me of a use case. When I was a film producer, I heard of a use case that was very interesting in France. Three well-known comedians. They had this. They were called Les Inconnus, the unknown, and they made a movie. So they were basically doing stand-up, and they were so famous in the 90s that they made their own movie. And the movie was quite good, but the thing is, during the movie, there is a rave party, and during the movie, for the shooting of the movie, there was a DJ who was playing tunes. And just, for the extras and the audience to dance around and to, make the movie feel real. The thing is, the guy who made the sound edits forgot one little fader, and that guy forgot 5 seconds. He forgot to remove 5 seconds of a copyrighted music from the DJ, and then that appeared in the movie. So one of the producers of this DJ heard about that. Like, the guy went to see the movie unknowingly, and he said, "Hey, I hear that music. that's we produced that. So they sued the company that produced the movie, and it cost something. If I remember correctly, it cost something like $500,000. And so it was settled because they managed to settle it. On some other cases, some people would remove that, would just remove the content from YouTube, for example. But in the world of blockchain, since blockchain is mostly based on immutability, how do we proceed? Say there are, already there's a bunch of NFTs associated to an artist, and it happens. Oh shit! Now everyone knows that these NFTs shouldn't belong to this artist, but to another one. But the NFTs are already here, and it's immutable. How do you guys manage that?
Well, it's a complicated case. In that case, of course, we would have to burn these NFTs because the creator is the creator. There's no way around it. It's funny, the example that you gave, and the legal fees are real. It's a crazy amount. If they would have paid just the royalties to get permission to have that song featured on the film, they would have paid way less than what they ended up because of suing.
Yes.
In the world of blockchain, because... and I like to give this example. Let's say that blockchain is like a government. It's like a country, a whole country. And it's the way of governance, which is transparent, it's beautiful, everyone likes it. And this is blockchain as a perfect utopia. But justice, so the legal system, is separate from government. And here in blockchain, in the world, it happens the exact same way. So when it comes to suing or to having a copyright infringement, regulations are still not here enough. So we cannot just assume that blockchain can solve it all. And Kleros, for example, is an extreme good example of blockchain trying to solve it all, but it's not there yet because law is still a separate system. And for the good and for the bad, we need to count on the legal regulations that exist in the processes. In a case of a copyright infringement with NFTs, if the artist wants to sue the infringer, then it has to. And it has to go through the same traditional way. The only difference is the documentation that they will give to prove copyright will be decentralized, thanks to us.
So does that mean that, for example, because on YouTube, for example, if you are taking somebody else's content and the content ID AI spots you, basically all the revenue generated goes to the original artist, or your video gets taken down, whatever. But since we cannot do that, does that mean that we would see old collectible NFTs? Oh, this is not the real artist, but this was a fake NFT. This is a real NFT of a fake artist, just as some collectors in the real world can buy, oh, this is a hard-pressed copy of Michael Jackson album, but it's not a real one. It's a piracy studio that did it, and it gets more value and it's worth something because of its rarity. Is it a case that could happen then in the future with NFTs?
Yes, it's like buying Pokemon cards and then reading it very well, and after all, it doesn't really say Pokemon. It says something slightly
Pokemon.
Yes. Will they become valuable in the future? They shouldn't. They shouldn't because they're fake. And the good thing about blockchain is that using, for example, one of our core services, which is timestamping, you timestamp the NFT. So when I timestamp my NFTs, and it's recorded that they are the original and that they were minted at set place, set time, while all the other copies will not be valid.
All right. You said earlier that you thought music was a bit harder to protect with NFTs than, for example, pictures or films. Could you elaborate a bit further on this?
Yes, it's not just with NFTs, it's in the traditional market. Music copyright is always harder because it's based on rhythm. And rhythm is something that it's natural, that it exists in nature. Even the rhythms that we perform and we create ourselves, and you hear a Pink Floyd song and you know, this is unique. There's nobody else that can invent this rhythm. But you hear a lot of songs, and I've heard lately more and more songs that remind me of Pink Floyd, because rhythm is very easy. It's not to copy, it's just to perform it. So when it comes to music, it requires a whole different system of validation, because you need to look at the rhythm, you need to look at all the proofs of creation, and as well, lyrics are poetry, and a lot of times poetry is also copied just because it's an intention, a creative intention that is based on experience, and humans have similar experiences.
Okay, so I'm going to play the devil's lawyer, as we said, just for the experiment of thought. How would it happen? How would it be in a world where basically property rights are recognized only if that property can be stolen? Because obviously, the intent behind copywriting, the intent is to protect the time and the energy to basically give an incentive to the person who has spent energy, so that energy doesn't get hijacked by a person who said, hey, I came and witnessed your R&D, and now just by spending this little amount of energy I can sell it better than you can, and so I'm exploiting your previously spent energy. I understand the intent. That's the same intent when people are, for example, patenting some technologies. But philosophically, that means that basically copy is forbidden, but technically copy isn't theft in the meaning, in the sense that you're not technically depriving a user. If you're copying their ideas, you're not depriving them of using their ideas. It's not like you're stealing some physical goods. Some people, by the way, criticize NFTs, saying, yes, but most of the time NFTs don't have any real value because it's just data that can be copied, and it says I'm the owner of a JPEG. I know it's also a bit of a fallacy, because I can say I have a poster copy of Mona Lisa in my bedroom, and I enjoy it as much as the real one, but still some people would enjoy the real one much more. So it's very subjective. But what would happen for the art industry and NFTs if we were in a society that culturally didn't recognize copywriting as a property right? How would it happen?
Chaos.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
It would have some chaos. I mean, I cannot assume how it would be, because it's almost like asking what would anarchy look like, or the opposite, of course. But the reason why I want to answer immediately chaos is that artists and creators, so creative people, they have a creative mind. That's what they do. And a commercial mind, it's a bit different. It's quite rational. When I studied business, there was this theory. It's a Harvard theory that it's very important to look at, which is the inventor versus the innovator. And the inventor is a creator. The inventor thinks of something, he purchases an idea, and he needs to make it happen, like a painting, like a statue, like a technology, of course. While the innovator is the one that it also has a creative mind and an intuition. He looks at the inventor and looks at the invention and sees, how can this perform in the world? The inventor usually is not really thinking, okay, my painting will make everyone feel love, or he's not really thinking about it. He's just expressing. While the innovator knows, oh, people are going to look at this and they're going to feel it.
They're going to pay for that.
Exactly. So let me put it out there. And the problem with that would be with the lack of copyright is that we would be in a world where the inventors would have all the power over the innovators. And the innovators would not have the possibility to protect their work before the innovation comes. And this is very important. The work must be protected, because innovation can come in very ugly ways. It's not always beautiful the way people sell things. Marketing is definitely not always beautiful, and we know so many examples of it.
Well, let's say it's I would say, on the other hand, that it's not always ugly, but most of the time it is ugly. More often ugly than beautiful. Okay, very interesting. And what do you think of a society where innovators would basically be, on a short-term to mid-term basis, completely deprived of new inventions? Because you're making a very interesting distinguo here between innovation and invention, between basically creativity and being a smart ass that sells things. Wouldn't that innovator be deprived of anything to sell if that person didn't have any invention to fuel the innovation in the end?
Yes, but I think that's the balance of the world. That's why we always have creators and we always have more rational people. So there is a match. I'm not saying that copyrights must be fully protected and nobody should ever get their inventions out. They will find the right innovator. But also, the innovator is not just this puppet mind. The innovator is a creator itself. He just understands the external side of a creation. So I would say that the innovator, even without the inventor, would still have a lot to say.
That's very interesting. And so, changing topics here, how did you come in contact with the blockchain industry? Was it your first choice, or did you do something else before that and then think, hey, I want to go there? How did it happen?
It was very random, but it happened. It was fluent, but I wasn't expecting it. So with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, of course, I had my own. I was not into cryptocurrency per se. I just hold some coins. So this was back in 2020 when the pandemic started. And at the time, I was working in business for a media company, so doing TV production. And I was as well studying and living my pandemic at home like everyone else. And I had this friend that we were always very much into art and business together. And with the pandemic, this was April. There was just one day that I decided to speak about what's going on with the artists. The artists are stuck at home. They have no muse to be creative. They have no festivals or any place to sell their art. What's going on and what can we do about it? So we just developed a website to be an online gallery with a store as well, some e-commerce store, in order to disseminate and to sell art. And this was the first point. I just wanted to help artists to sell their art in the traditional space, but using digital technology. And by the end of 2020, I heard the concept of NFTs. And my motto was always that the art must be protected. So NFTs brought the ownership that traditional e-commerce was lacking. And that's where the value of the artist came along. So I just jumped in. From that, I went to studying blockchain technologies and understanding more and more about it.
All right. And what was your first user experience? Did it feel smooth for you? Okay, I know that's the right question. I love asking that question because everyone is always telling me, no, it was shitty as hell.
I was scared every time I did a transaction. Now, almost like going by number, wallet address number by number and letter by letter. I was so afraid of pressing and just never seeing the money again. No, it was not easy.
Yeah. Well, that part, by the way, is the one that I find the least discomfortable in using wallets because yes, you have a weird address with random numbers and letters, but then again, if you're looking at an IBAN on the interface of your bank, you're going to wire money, and it's going to be something like, if it's in Spain, it's going to be ES and 7520 and many numbers. So you're going to manually check as well. But maybe the difference is that interfaces can help you store your contacts. But okay, and what were the other pain points of the user experience?
So, besides the using MetaMask and Binance and Gate.io, which was always this complex feeling because you don't have banking does allow you this safety where even if I send money to the wrong account, I can still retrieve it. With blockchain, you can't. So there was always this fear. And the first time I went to mint an NFT was crazy. It was crazy because I had to dive into so much knowledge. OpenSea didn't have IPFS on the platform, so NFTs were all compromised. So you couldn't just mint an NFT. First, you needed to find an EPFS platform like Pinata to upload your NFT there to make sure that it was on the IPFS, and then to go to OpenSea and to mint it and to prepare all of this. And while doing all of that, there was a lot of community support that I was reassured on Discord, on Clubhouse. Everyone was there to answer. But the way that the community was speaking, this hype that started in 2021 was so strong that for me it was a little bit too much. Too many people using Discord, using Twitter, and everyone just revolutionizing the world. It was beautiful, but it was a wave of too much, maybe.
Yeah, so that means that the hurdle to enter the market was very high.
Yes.
Okay. Any suggestion for the industry? Any way this could be improved to gather more people around this beautiful tech?
To be honest, I think the balance is coming. It's already coming naturally. And one of the reasons is that with this hype bubble, everyone wanted to make money. And we saw back in April of this year, OpenSea declared that around 80% of their NFTs were either scam or just fake or rug pulls, as we know. So this 80% exists. They exist in crypto, they exist in NFTs. They just don't exist in blockchain technology because it's a technology. So with the crash of Luna, Celsius, now FTX, with the support that the marketplaces are giving more and more to protect creators and companies that are emerging like UREEQA to validate and to also help protect, we see that this unbalance, this extreme amount of unnecessary comments and wallet addresses going to every comment on Reddit and Twitter are disappearing. And I think we're entering a phase where the waters will be quiet, and then we will find the right players.
The right balance. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to play the devil's advocate, because NFTs are your main trade, are your domain. So, do you think of a use case that you find absurd? Because many people have objections about NFTs, many people have objections about the blockchain, cryptocurrencies, that kind of stuff. Among all the use cases you've seen, are there some of them that you think that you don't understand, that you think about thinking, no, I'm too old for this, or I really don't get it, this is just some hype and I don't see the real interest in it?
There are definitely many examples like that.
Oh.
Where I feel that I am just too old to understand. And one of them was the Ethereum rocks last year.
Okay.
Which was just, I don't know if you remember it, but they were rocks, literal rocks, created using paint, which for me is not the tool of an artist, or it can be, but not like this. So they sold for a high amount of money. So this was one example that I didn't understand. But again, I am not culturally indifferent to anything. So when people ask about JPEGs, about Bored Ape, and a lot of people ask me about this, why are they beyond JPEGs? There is a cultural impact that we need to perceive. Even with the Ethereum rocks, if they came for any purpose and they really did make an impact, and this impact allowed more users to come and to check out the space and to understand NFTs, then they had some benefits. So I try not to assume that that anything is wrong. Of course, rug pulls, scams, I don't understand those. I don't like those. And I think all of those people should be out. If you're copying,
Hmm.
then what the hell are you doing with your life? But otherwise, I think cultural impact and respect is very important. So anything that comes along and brings some benefits, even if I'm too old for it, it's okay.
I remember a tweet from Vitalik saying, "Oh, I'm a bit skeptical with this and that tech, but then again, it brings traction to my ecosystem, and this allows me to fund it, and whatever." And yeah, of course. All right. So now, for you, what are the challenges that the blockchain industry is going to have to face in the future, aside from, of course, UX?
So yes, the user experience is one of the major ones. The interoperability is
Hmm.
also very important because we're seeing other players coming along to the market. For example, Estonia with their own blockchain. And if there is not enough technology to make everything interoperable, then
Hmm.
we will see a lot of crashes because not everyone will be able to stay.
So
Yeah.
for you, being able to have like a smooth communication from one blockchain to another, one platform to another, is one of the keys to a healthy future for this industry.
Yes, it is.
Okay, another challenge.
Well, the legal and the ethical guidelines.
Mm.
So the part of it where it comes to justice and ethics, it's also very important. And I think there's a future in blockchain where we are already defying finance. We're already restructuring
Hmm.
what was existent. So when it comes to ethics, and ethics is, for example, to cut the middleman so that creators can be creators and professionals can receive their money and pay their taxes automatically without any other needs, the economy of things where machines will rise to make money for us as well. All these things are very important and they are coming. So we need to develop, and I think the future of blockchain is also to develop more sustainable technologies and methods or processes for justice, for the legal system.
Hmm. All right. And in terms of regulations, are there countries that you consider, being very advanced compared to the others? Some countries we should take inspiration from, in your opinion?
Mm, for now, well, there are many countries that are doing it quite well. And the European Union is not a far, of course, not a country, but the Union is not far from one of those players that is really trying to do as rightful as possible. But I think there's still a lot to come, and regulations may not come as we want them to because I see blockchain, NFTs, and cryptocurrency being too well attached to each other. So there is no real way to regulate blockchain without regulating crypto and without regulating all the other things.
Yeah,
So I see countries are trying to do it well, but this is $1 trillion industry. Everyone wants in.
of course. Of course. Okay, and so the opposite question, is there one country whose regulations are seeming completely eerie to you?
And of course, let's look at Iran, for example,
Okay.
or many other countries. And before, from your other question, I do, and I would like to say that Dubai is doing a really good job with regulations.
Okay.
I think that they are really trying to improve the blockchain world by regulating everything in a way that is quite freeing for everyone that wants to come. Of course, this is all money making.
Obviously, yes. When you're talking about Dubai, for example, what kind of law did make you think that?
It's not about the law, it's about their organization system. So,
Ah.
VARA, the organization system for digital assets of Dubai, is really a well fundamented organization with gender equality, among other things that I do admire for Dubai. And they really sit and work on why should copyright be protected? How can crypto be protected in a way that things like FTX don't happen? So this is what I find interesting, is that they are sitting and they are actually thinking about it instead of just dropping laws, which a lot of other countries like the US fails to do, where they just put out new laws and hope that everyone will follow them without understanding that they're actually just hurting a lot of companies in the end.
And the biggest ones probably wouldn't comply, hence FTX and so on. Okay, and regarding Iran, more concretely, why Iran specifically as a country that is far behind?
Well, in one of the points last year, if I not recall, yes, it was last year, they started banning anything related to MetaMask and NFTs. So they banned all MetaMask, including MetaMask wallets that work together or that had any transfer, anything with MetaMask wallets that are from Iran. So with this, they blocked wallets that were not even in the country. And this is something that they were powered to do without really having a real power. But MetaMask had to be compliant.
Oh, so they banned the company more than the users. What happens in Iran? Do you know if somebody gets caught with a computer with MetaMask still on the computer?
I'm not sure.
Well, I don't want to find out.
I do have to find out now, but we'll do it later.
Yeah, dear viewers, please put that in the comments. All right, and regarding the art industry all around the world, is there, a difference, for example, from one place to another in the world that could change the way we implement NFTs, for example? Because, for example, China had a very different relationship to intellectual property than we had, at least until a few years ago. Now that China has a huge pool of inventors, indeed, they also want to respect patents on their own soil, because counterfeit products means that they cannot also sue people on the other side of the world, in the US, for example, for copying Chinese inventions. So now there's an incentive to respect those laws, for the better and for the worst. Do you think that, for example, the cultural difference in some countries would make it very, very tricky to implement your NFT system here?
I don't see why. Of course, I know that there are a lot of countries that will make it hard, mainly countries that prefer their users to be outside of the web system. So the countries that censor internet will always have a problem with when dedicating themselves to NFTs, because NFTs are very transparent. Anything can be an NFT, including porn, which is hard for some people to accept. So I would say that there are countries that for sure will have a lot of problems, but I don't see the point.
Okay, and now I'm going to ask you a tricky question. How would a totalitarian state, or how would an evil company, whatever evil means, but how would they use NFTs? We can imagine many, many positive uses of artificial intelligence, for example, and many, many freedom-killing uses. What would you think about NFTs? Let's say I were a dictator. How would I use NFTs in order to manipulate and enslave my population? Is there a use case for me here? Yeah, I know that's a tricky question, but
It is. I don't have a totalitarian mind, so it's hard for me to come across this answer. But one thing for sure, propaganda. Propaganda is advertising. Advertising, you already see it on NFTs. So easily through propaganda. And I remember, I do want to say something about this case, but I want to make sure that it doesn't represent what I think. But when the Bored Apes, there was a video that went viral now in June, back in June of this year by Ryder Rips, that was related to how the Bored Apes had all these Nazi symbols and this sexist, homophobic, whatever it is, all the
Transphobic,
symbolism.
racist, whatever
Absolutely.
phobicism. Yeah, okay.
And then we meet the founders, and one of the founders is Jewish, and the other founder is Mexican, and we see that there's a lot of equality here. So, of course, the Bored Apes, and again, does not represent how I think, but when this whole video came along and it was viral, it was like propaganda. And I gave myself the thought, okay, if this could be true, then what did it mean in cultural impact? Because the Bored Apes have a huge cultural impact. If it was real, then they would have been using it for totalitarian propaganda, which is not the case. Once again, I have to repeat it.
Of course.
But to answer your question, I think that propaganda would be a bad but great use case of NFTs.
That's interesting. And subsidiary question then, how, because e-reputation is extremely important. And there's a saying, a thumb rule that says, basically, if you want to disprove, a fallacy, a level 8 fallacy, you have to spend an amount of energy that is level 9, a level 9 amount of energy. So the amount of energy necessary to disprove to disprove fake news or disinformation is one order of magnitude higher than creating said fake information, said false information. So what happens if in the future governments or malevolent entities, not necessarily evil persons, I'm not talking about, good versus bad situation. I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, most people who are using propaganda are using it for their own means, and many people are really, really spreading lies because they think they are morally right, and being factually correct is not really important. Being morally right is more important. And in the history, people using propaganda and manipulating masses have always been convinced that they were on the good side of history and that the juice was worth the squeeze. So let's say, for example, false informations ruining somebody's reputation. These informations become immutable because of the blockchain tech, because of NFTs, and because of the whole structure of data. How could we correct this? Is there another way than creating more NFTs, reestablishing the truth?
There could come a validation system to validate news as fake or verified. By validating the authors, for example, and as well other documentation that can prove that. But it's not a process that can be automated. So if I post a fake news, if I mint a fake news as an NFT, it will be there. And then somebody can come, a whole project that validates, and they can claim it was fake news, and I can have this, like the blue tick that you have on Twitter, but something like red and with a cross saying, okay, this was fake news. This was not a good NFT. That can come. But of course, this is a technology. It's a transparent technology where we can have anything out there. So there is no real way to protect fake news just yet.
And I'm not even sure we would have eventually a way to protect people from fake news, because I don't know any way to validate the validator instead of, aside from hiring a validator for validators of validators, and then you're going to have to hire a validator of the validators and so on. It's an endless chain. So in the end, there's nothing that can protect you and make sure that you hold the truth, of course. But the way you think philosophically is more interesting for the audience than the actual solution to the problem, of course. Thank you so much, Maria. Is there any last word you would like to add for our viewers?
Well, just on the topic of what we were discussing
Mm-hmm.
with truth and false, of course, we're always seeking for truth, the same way as good and bad. We should be seeking for good even when we're actually seeking for bad. But I just wanted to point out that everything is a balance. So when we see that there's an imbalance on the bad side versus the good, then we try to provide more things that will bring good, and vice versa. So we are always in this constant fight with ourselves and with our communities, and then with our society, and then with the world, and with nature, and with the universe. It's just how energy works. It's just pure physics. And philosophically speaking, we just need to keep having these debates. That's the most important.
Thank you so much, Maria. Everyone, this was Maria Rebelo, Head of NFT Business Development at UREEQA. You were listening to Mutual Knowledge Systems. Please like, share, and subscribe, and follow Maria in the description if you want. Goodbye.